Namaskar, good morning, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this latest Indica Books Live. We are back after a short break, and we had taken a hiatus of a few weeks. We are back now, and I am absolutely delighted today because we have a very special talk today. We not only have we are going to be discussing a lovely book, but we also have two authors with us, very erudite and distinguished in their own right. So, as you can see from the background, we are going to be talking about this book called Forever Theirs by Vijayalakshmi Vijayakumar Akka, Vijayakka, as we all affectionately call her. And this is, I'll read out a little blurb from the book to give you an idea what it is. So, Forever There is a historical fantasy novel set in Varanasi. The protagonists belong to the family of the Weaver of Gods. The story revolves around their family, who find themselves embroiled in upheavals and wars amidst an extremely tumultuous period in Kashi when skirmishes and destruction were the order of the day. That should give you an idea roughly how far back in time this book is set. The protégés, mere children, join a band of warrior monks to help protect the culture of the land. We see history through the eyes of the four as they transform into warriors, head of the elite forces of the warrior monks. Battle scarred, wielding weapons of destruction, feared by the enemy, loved and missed by their family. So, with this book, I promise you will be transported to a period when every day brings new adventures to your doorstep. And the book looks at history anew, even as value systems change and cultural plates shift. So the questions it will make you ask are: what values must one imbibe? Is diversity positive or negative? Should the world be in only one color, or should it be in many hues and shades? Do acts of violence upon community and culture destroy the inherent essence of civilization and culture? Now, a few words about Vijayaka also. So, uh, Vijayaka lives here in Bangalore, South Bangalore, in fact. So she's even more connected to all of us in more ways than one. And she grew up at the feet of the esteemed gurus Swami Chinmayanand and Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who instilled in her a deep and abiding love for Bharat and her culture. She is the director of the Center for Soft Power, and she strings together all the flowers that make the garland of Indian ethos, sensibilities, and aesthetics, both colorful and fragrant. And she is also the founder secretary of Heritage, a not-for-profit trust that has successfully conducted for over a decade a signature temple festival called Gaudiya Sambhrama, which is known for its sense of classicism. And she is also the director of Vijiram Private Limited and Madhvi Greens Private Limited, the legacy of her dear husband, Shri Vijayakumar. And a word or two now about the other guests that we have here. Uh, First one is Shiv Kumar GV, who is not only an author in his own right, he is one of the authors of the anthology Unsung Valor, which was published by Bloomsbury, and he contributed a story there. And then he came out with, as a curator, he came out with this very well received anthology called Arya, which talks about tales of Indian women of valor from our text from the Mahabharata and from the Puranas. And then we also have Sai Swarupa, who basically needs no introduction. She is the author of several best-selling books. Her latest one being Rukmani, but before that with Abhaya, Avishi, Mori, and Draupadi. And she's also the curator of Unsung Valor, and she's now an academic, a professor at Chanakya University. So, with that, I will it gives me great pleasure to introduce and welcome Vijayaka. Namaskar.
Namaskar, namaskar.
And I will add Shivu and Sai also. So, Vijayaka, the very first question, the very obvious question is now, when we met, you talked about how you used to have these, story sessions during summer breaks and other things for kids, and they would, just love those stories. So, my basic first question is, what made you take the journey from a Vachak to a Lekhak?
Well, I also used to write some things which ended up in the recycle bin of the computer most of the times. And as I just kept writing and writing, this particular story just kept growing on me. And then I asked my husband, I harassed him to read the whole story. And then as he started reading, then it was no longer harassment because he got so interested in the story. He kept telling me, okay, now what's the next? Why aren't you sitting at your computer? Why aren't you writing? So then I finished the book. And then he said, okay, now that you've done it, let's give it to an editor. I said, for what? Because normally mine I write and then it's somewhere in the corner of my computer or it just goes into the recycle bin. Then he said, no, he said, this should be published. I said, I am not an author. I don't want any such thing. And he said, no, 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 it has to be done. Then I still wasn't convinced. And so I gave it to a few friends. I gave it to some people. Then they all said it's good. But then I was still not convinced because, people who know you sometimes tend not to tell you the truth. I mean, they don't want to hurt you. So then I gave it to somebody who I don't really know. And I said, and I didn't say I had written the story. I said, this is a story. What do you think about it? And she said, well, she said, it's very gripping. It's very nice. Whose is this story? And then I had to reveal whose story it was. And then I said, then I was sort of kind of breaking down to, okay, let me publish it. Then I asked our Indica Harikiran, and he immediately said yes. I said, but you have not read it. How can you just say yes? He said, Akka, I know your book will be good. But then, of course, it went through many editors and many changes. And, then finally, this was what came out. And well, I have to mention here that you were saying about summer. If I became very, very creative about my writing, I mean, of course, I've told my children stories. And they would always say that, you're the only person who can convert a 3-hour movie to a 5-hour story because I like the detailing. But my grandchildren, more so my grandson, was the one who inspired me to become extremely creative. Because them, of course, I told them stories from the Puranas, but my grandson, like he was some kind of a director, would tell me, and he especially liked Dhruva stories. So it would always be, oh, okay, now I want Dhruva story, but Dhruva should be 15 years old. And then he'll say, now we need robos in this. So then my philosophy is that you can be creative with all these stories, but the essential character and nature of Puranic uh, characters should never be changed. Because you can't make Dhruva into some kind of a weakling. You can't make Dhruva into some kind of a selfish person. You can't make Dhruva into somebody who doesn't actually rule with dharma. So, that's how I started becoming really creative with stories. And that took me on a beautiful journey because I would always bring in some element of our culture, something about how you have to stand by dharma, things like this that I felt is a good way through a story that seems contemporary but still rooted in our dharma. Does that answer your question, Abhinav? Sai
So,
Swarupa, I think, yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
let me then ask, or okay, Shivu, did you have a question or Sai?
Uh, I think we lost Abhinav. So,
Oh,
oh, is he there or?
No, he's very much there. I
yeah,
think he's not able to hear. Maybe
Okay.
yeah.
there's a
There's a
so
delay,
let
right?
yeah. So
Yeah,
let me
maybe.
ask
Yeah.
a question while Abhinav comes back. So Vijika, there are many things in this book. Um, it's a collection of so many chapters. Um, a lot of these chapters, I read it as independent stories also, while being woven into a single thread. Many characters, there are many concerns. But if I ask you the question, what is the singular concern? I mean, not as a cultural personality, as a general author, but in this book, there are a couple of things that must have moved you to write this book. Before we come to the book and the structure and elements within the book, I would like you to dwell upon a little bit as to what is the creative mover that shaped this book.
Well, the one thing was that their great passion uh, for Kashi Vishwanath and for their tradition of weaving for the gods, as I call it, for the temples, and the commitment of youngsters and the family values that that whole weavers family had. I mean, with so many people, there was not one bad egg in that basket. All of them
Mhm.
had the same vision. They moved together. Their personal interests, the interest of the community, the larger interest of their culture and their country were all in sync.
Interesting. It's also interesting that we are talking to you on Kashi Vishwanatha on 5th August, on the day in which on which the
Ayodhya Bhumi Puja was done.
Ayodhya movement also saw a significant upsurge, and I'm sure with this we will also move in another direction civilizationally. So let me ask you a sort of you know creative I would like you to dwell upon the creating weaving of the book itself, but let me make my reflection so that you can weave your answer around that. So the sense that I got while reading the book was that here is a society. I'm not just talking about the weaver community, I'm talking about the entire characters that has a deep civilizational memory somewhere, but is struggling to come to terms with it, and is gradually trying to find an expression of its civilizational memory. That is what is hidden. It is trying to gradually surface it, and that surfacing is quite a painful surfacing, and it is trying to surface it in a manner that is as least painful as possible, and as much as possible trying to create a way forward with its own memory. Is that how you have uh, when you were writing, is this what you had in mind, or what were the other elements from the creative universe that help you shape this book?
Well, if you ask me whether that was what I felt at that time when I thought of those times, yes. Because, yes, it was a time when they were grappling to hold on to something. That's why repeatedly, if you see one of those boys keeps asking, will we be able to continue our Parampara? We have given a vow, we have made a vow. Is it something that we can continue with? So I think sometimes that extrapolates to today in a different way, that somewhere we are sort of slipping. I always remember what Kalidasa says. It does not mean that everything that is old is good and that everything new is not bad. But there are many good things that we are sort of, slipping away from. And whether it's with our food or whether it's with so many other things in life, we are trying to look at ourselves and our country from outside. We can look from inside and we can make whatever changes we want to, but we need not make these changes based on what somebody from some other culture who doesn't have an understanding of our culture tells us about ourselves. I think we need to be objective about ourselves, but not with an outsider's view. I mean, am I clear, or is it kind of
Yeah,
confusing what I said?
yeah, yeah. Good. Thanks. Surapa, you have something to ask Vijayaka.
Yes, actually, my question was a continuation to your previous question, not the last one, but the previous question where Akka was talking about that joint family, which has a shared destination and shared values. And as Akka said, like we see them, totally in resonance about the whole aim of about whole devotion for Kashi and devotion for their profession and devotion even for the cause that lay right ahead. So Akka, because joint family, a family being so much united, right, that is something which is very that that is rare today. We may not be totally fighting with each other, but it's like it is so common to disagreements and dissension has become so common among families these days. I just want to know about your thoughts that went in behind, constructing that family, reimagining that family the way an Indian family ought to be, right?
See, I think we are in an age of intolerance, because intolerance has crept into us knowingly, unknowingly, in whatever way, form, shape. That is why we can't accept diversity. 90% of our problems happen because we can't accept diversity. We can't accept that somebody can be a little different from me. We are becoming very rigid in our ways, which I
Mm.
don't know. I don't want to blame anybody, but maybe the 1,000 years of invasions and colonization and all this led to some kind of, I want to protect what I have, I want to protect what I have. In the process,
Ah.
we are becoming very rigid. So when we become rigid, it becomes my way or the highway.
Mm.
So I mean, that is something, and because of that, we become intolerant of anybody who has different ways. While in our culture, there is something called sampradaya.
Yes.
When you celebrate festivals, I mean, you should all know, when we celebrate festivals, we all do the same festival differently. I mean, it's not necessarily south and north. I mean, even within Karnataka, each home celebrates it in different ways. I mean, I may make kadubu in a certain way, somebody will make it in a different way, somebody will make it in yet a different way. And then I may say that we have to fast, and somebody will say, oh, no, 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 in our house they don't. But it's all acceptable because those are sampradayas. But we belong to a culture that has always been where, we adopt, adapt, and we move forward. We don't get stuck in any kind of rigidity. But unfortunately, as a result of what has happened to our culture for, the 1,000 odd years, to protect what is our own, we have forgotten what this is about: being accepting of diversity, accepting of and being open. So if somebody has a slightly different thing, even in your own family, it's like you get upset and no, no, no,
Mm.
no, this is the way
Yeah,
it
yeah.
has to be done, kind of thing. So this leads to a lot of intolerance, and then people break away. And
So,
also,
on the
this whole,
contrast, I have seen, the discussions are very vibrant between the family members. It's not like if something strikes me very well, especially when discussions happen on the crisis, when the crisis is about, there is hierarchy is not there. Everybody gets a voice. So, was it by design, or it came out very naturally to you?
as in, I didn't get your
No,
question.
there is no, whenever, the whole family discusses about the issue, that
Yeah.
lies ahead. I've seen that you have ensured, or, with flow, it came that every character present in that room or in that discussion gets a voice.
Yes.
And it is quite natural. That is what I felt striking. So the each discussion became very vibrant as,
Yes, because I think that doesn't matter what age somebody is,
mm,
there is no judgment of what they want or the knowledge that they have. We can't say that, oh, you're too small, you don't know.
Yeah.
listen openly, and then you may guide them. It's not that, I don't believe in asking a 2-year-old, what will you eat today? That definitely no. You give them what there is, because a 2-year-old really does not know what is good or what is not good. I always give the example of, in the animal kingdom, a kangaroo gives birth, and the baby is not even 1.5 inches, and it has to climb up to the pouch. If it doesn't climb up to the pouch, it's not going to survive. A calf, within an hour, not even an hour, within a few minutes, gets up, stands, walks to the udder, and takes its food. But not a human baby. A human baby, if you don't pick it up and nurture it, it's going to just wither away. So that nurturing, that guidance is needed. But that does not mean that you don't listen and you don't pay attention to what they have to say or what their views are.
Mm.
And don't tell them, if you don't do this, this is what will happen. Because we don't believe in that, my way or the highway. You can listen, and then you have to explain. And
Yes.
after that, you have to say, okay, this is not happening. This is how it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, all that, the diversity, it is very vibrant and it's very natural, is what that's one that has been my observation in the book.
Yes. Because as I grew up, I realized that there was a lot of diversity, which is now kind of coming down.
Okay. Sure.
A corollary to what Sai Surpa asked. So, one striking feature of the book is that, typically in a fiction we have, or in modern narratives we have, one protagonist, and somebody is carrying the weight of the narrative on the shoulder. Whereas in your book, I think, if you ask me who is the protagonist, I would say the culture slash civilization, or Kashi itself is the protagonist, and all characters are working around the civilization as the narrative. So that's how you wanted it to be, Vijayaka. So I'm just trying to create a conversation around the creative process.
Yes, absolutely. Because see, I have been used to reading and being immersed in a lot of the Puranas and stories from our heritage, where there was never one single protagonist. It was always multiple people carrying forward, and there was always a certain objective of the Samskriti and culture. So for me, that was what was important. And if I have to tell you the truth, um, I didn't really sit down and decide and write the story. I mean, everybody, how did you think of an ending? I never thought of the ending. I never thought of anything. It just happened. The story just happened, and it just, even when you said, how did you name anybody? I didn't think about it. If I name the person, who was the horse stable in charge, because I've constantly been in all these kind of books and this kind of thought process, Ashwapati was an easy name for me to give, because that's what he was.
Mhm.
So that's how it came about. It's probably it's the sum total of everything that has I have imbibed over the years, and that's what came out. And like I said, the story just happened. It's not that I decided I want to write a story and I sat and I wrote it. Not at all. So does that answer you?
Yes, very much, Vijayaka.
So,
Abhinav?
Akka, one more thing that, like, oh, is there an echo somewhere?
There
It
was
did.
not now.
Okay. Sure. So, one more thing that struck me was, which I liked rather, was, say, very unapologetic evocation of supernatural, right? That is something I feel the authors of this genre ought to be using more, rather than rationalizing and scientificizing every element from the Puranas, every story element from the Puranas. The supernatural element of being in some other plane of consciousness and operating in an alternative plane of consciousness, then the traversing through both planes and the transformative moments, right? So, would you like to elaborate more? Because that was, other than the family part, that is something which really caught my attention during reading.
Don't we all expect miracles in life? I think we all do. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are. Magic is something that you love. Though you want to rationalize it on the flip side, but when you think about it, it's very exciting. It kind of, leads to that wonderment. So I thought there should be a Rasanubhava of different sorts, So I said that wonderment should be there. So, I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, like I said, when my grandson wanted flying robots and flying cars, and, I said, wow, I mean, it's so exciting. Why not? I mean, you don't have to have an age for that, right? So I said, why not? And why should we be apologetic about it? I mean, all our Puranas have everything in it, and everybody loves the Puranas. So why not? So that's what made me, probably, like I told you, I mean, that's the thought process that happened.
Oh. So, I mean, just to narrow down my question, any particular reason why the training of the protagonists had to happen on an alternate plane? Was it for safety or?
Well, yes, safety, one thing, and undivided attention to what is going on. And also, that was the place where your mind is completely available to you. And only if they could have that focus did they want them to do what was expected of them. So if they could not have gone past that first training and been able to, the door to open for them, they probably would have just come back from there after a good experience of some good fitness and back to where they were. Because this needed something beyond what you can have, the courage, the single pointedness, and the detachment to action. If you get what I'm saying, the detachment to action, because they were not doing any of it for any selfish reason. And if you notice, none of them took back anything from any scene. Everything was left where it was, and they came empty-handed except for the weapons they had, and they left back with only what they brought.
Yes. Now that you say yes.
Yeah, so even that single box of sweets that one of them wanted to carry back, he had to get permission to ask if he can bring it back.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Thank you. And I think
actually,
Abhinav
you're making
wanted-
me, yeah, you're making me think more about what I've written than I probably did when I was writing.
Yeah, there are
No, even I'm a lover of magic, so I would, I wouldn't have complained even if there was, more amount of magic. In this book.
So,
there are many narratives that
Vijayaka, one
capture itself shades.
question that I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
go ahead.
you is, yeah, I'm sorry, my PC has got severe lag for whatever reason. So I'll just go ahead and ask my question. So Vijayaka, my question is that, tell us about the favorite passage in this book, your favorite passage in this book, why, and if you can, we'd love for you to read maybe a page, a paragraph, a passage from the book.
My favorite passage from the book is somewhere in the end, when it's after they are not able to save Kashi, but they do save Kardameshwar, which is today the only temple that is still standing from that period, without alterations and being rebuilt. When the voice of Shiva says, I am forever there, here, there, and everywhere, that is my favorite, because no matter what happens, the universal being is always there. And anybody who approaches that, whatever we want to call it, Shiva, Vishnu, Parameshwara, whatever we want, energy, some people want to only call it energy, some people say nature, whatever we want to call that being, is there, whether there is a temple, whether there is a temple is not there, whatever happens, that being is, that energy is there, and that energy is for anybody who approaches it, no matter who it is. So it always comes to mind what Swami Dayananda Saraswati used to say. He would say, we are not a culture that has one God, but for us there is only God. So everything in creation is divine. So that is my favorite portion of the book. I don't want to read it because it kind of, it's like the finale of this book, so I don't want that to be.
Okay. One question on your writing influences. Now, you said you have always been immersed in the Puranas and all, but say since this book is in English, what have been some of your influences? Some of the books, the authors, the styles, the genres that have influenced you as an English reader.
Well, we belong to the Macaulay educated people, so so English becomes like what you eat, drink, sleep, think, wake up in, etc., etc. I went to a school that was actually run by an American mother and daughter, but the daughter was educated in a Gujarati medium school, and they were probably more Indian than Indians were. In fact, at that time, the mother wanted Sanskrit to be introduced. In fact, we had already reached 9th standard. And when some parent objected, she told them, you should be ashamed of yourself if you don't want your child to learn Sanskrit. So, yes, we started in 9th standard and had to do 2 years worth of Sanskrit within 1 year. But they encouraged us a lot to read. What should I say? Comics were banned. If they found comics, it would be torn and thrown in front of us into the dustbin, because they were very particular that the language that we learn has to be good. So I still remember when we were in very young class, the Hindi teacher used to relate Premchand ki kahaniya, and we had to read that level of Hindi even when we were in like 6th, 7th standard. And English, of course, we read. I remember my mother telling me to read Walter Scott's Rob Roy because the language will become better. So I did read Jane Austen and, etc., etc., all the classical novels that we've read. And of course, after that, I've read a lot of other novels also. But I have stuck more to serious reading in the later years of my life, where I normally don't pick up a novel per se, but I may read a translation of the Bhagavad Gita or Swamiji's Upanishad. But of course, all of them write very good English also. So that's what it is.
Right, that's a common refrain that I have heard from some is that some of these foreigners who come to India and some of them, they turn out to be more Indian than Indians are themselves. Indians seem to be forever desperately trying to be not Indian. But leaving that aside, so okay, I had one question. I'm trying to remember what that was. It was. To kind of take off, Shivu had started this thread by saying that you want to talk a little bit about the craft of writing, and my previous question in terms of your writing influences was along those lines. So here's a question: if you had to go, so okay, the two questions here. The first one is that if you had to go back, what would you add to this book, or what would you cut back? And the second is this a story that you see kind of developing further, moving? Is there something that we see beyond where this book ends?
I am quite happy with what I've done, because I've gone through this for maybe 2 years now. Well, since some things happened and I just didn't pick it up after that, and so I've gone through it many times, because I wasn't I wasn't confident of wanting to publish it at all. Like I told you, normally my stories just go into the recycle bin. And so I have gone through it many times. I've given it to many people, to many editors who've come back and said, why exactly are you giving this to us? So, and as to it going forward, a sequel to this, I don't think I want to get caught in that trap of writing sequels, because sometimes I see many people who write sequels and go on and all. After the second or third, it gets kind of boring and repetitive. So I've already started my second story, but it's totally different than this. I mean, there's no comparison at all to that in this.
Huh. Huh. I am intrigued, but given that we are talking about Forever Theirs, I will not ask you questions about that book for now. Shivu, Sai, over to
Yeah,
you.
my slightly a difficult question, examination question.
Oh my
Um,
God.
what which part? This is a question that I'm always interested in. What is the most difficult part of the book to write? Not just from a uh, substance standpoint, but from a creative process standpoint, because that is something that there's a lot of learning for writers. I always love to ask this question: what was the difficult moment creatively, and how did you overcome that?
Um, like I said, again, I did not write this because I wanted to write it, but I just wrote it. So I have noticed one thing: if I want to come and sit down and start writing, nothing happens. I can sit at the computer and I'll be just sitting there. But then all of a sudden I feel like I want to, I'll come and there'll be pages and pages that I've gone through and I've written. So it's and I didn't have a time, I didn't have a time by which I had to write, nothing. So I just allowed my mind to wander through the corridors of Kashi and wherever, and it just came out. So I'm not very helpful with other writers, I guess. Because like I said, again, I never started out wanting to be a writer. I was just somebody wanting to share my thoughts, and that's all that happened there.
Got it.
Yeah, but once I did, I was very happy that I did. I mean, I'm very happy that my husband egged me on to take a look at it and finish it. And otherwise I probably would have just let it slip away, and then may have taken it up later. But he really egged me on to finishing it. He and there's another youngster, Arun Sharma, who keep asking me, okay, so now where is the story gone from here? Have you moved? Have you not moved? So
So the story itself is flowing like River Ganga also.
absolutely, if River Ganga wasn't there, I don't know whether this story would have ever happened in my mind. Because to me, those are all very special things. Kashi, River Ganga, and nature is very important to me, because if you notice in the glossary, I also have an article on the freshwater dolphin, because I think that uh, we should understand that man is not the crown of creation, and the world was not made for man to use, abuse, misuse, and destroy, which is unfortunately what we are doing now. I mean, I really loved the COVID time when nobody was on the streets, because the animals really had a wonderful time. In fact, I live in South Bangalore, and there were peacocks roaming around in the next street. So, I mean, look at the freedom that those animals had, and where, we don't, I mean, we no longer have, we build highways through forests. We don't give them any space. So, this is something that we have to learn. So, that's why, and the next thing is, people, I mean, you didn't ask me, but why I have such a detailed glossary is because I really wanted people to know about our culture and our country. But if I had written all that in the story, it would have become a huge the story would have gone on for another 100 pages, and I don't know whether people would have had the patience to read all that. But I'm sure when it comes to, okay, it's just about Ganga, or it's just about Varanasi, or it's just about the dolphin, or about the Banaras weaves, people will go back. And I do hope everybody will go through that glossary, because I know I asked Shivkumar also to write for that. And it was so nice that Shivkumar and Ratul and, people who are already authors in their own right agreed to write for a glossary.
I enjoyed it, and I think just sequencing all the civilizational memories around Kashi, that itself is very beautiful, actually.
Kashi is a very special place.
Very, very special place. If you just go through various references in various texts around Kashi, I think that itself will become another book.
Yes, somebody asked me about my experience in Kashi. I said, the mother Sumedha in the book, when she steps on Kashi, she feels that thrill. I remember when I first went to Kashi, that's how I felt. I mean, it was like, I can't even express what I felt then. And once I went, I wanted to go again. And then I went to the Kumbh Mela. In fact, my husband used to ask me whenever he traveled, he would ask, do you want to come? And, normally the answer was no, because I had, family and home and children and etc. So much later, he asked me once, he said, I'm going to Kanpur. Would you want to come? And this was, January, February. And I said, yes, I want to come to Kanpur. Then he said, really, to Kanpur? I said, yes, I want to come to Kanpur. I said, but. He said, I knew there was a but there. He said, and now what is it? I said, I want to go to the Kumbh Mela. I mean, we are from south by South Bangalore. So he said, you want to go to the Kumbh Mela? And, I don't do very well in the middle of too much crowd. So he said, you know how the crowd will be there? I said, yes, I know. I said, but I want to go to the Kumbh Mela. Finally, he said, okay. I mean, he really thought I was, somewhere had something really off. But we went to the Kumbh Mela, and that was such an experience. I mean, it's something that is really beyond expression. So we went up to mid-river, and then we took a boat, came down to the middle of the river. I could see people like bees on the banks. This was a Shahi Snan day also. And the boatman just said, Acha, Snan kijiye. I mean, we just jumped in. I mean, we did not even think. We just jumped in and then got up. And when I climbed back, it was really cold. I mean, it was like 7 degrees. And it's only when you're out of it, you realize the cold. I said, oh my God, now how am I going to change? Nothing. They were so creative. They just took they had 2 or 3 saris. They just held it around and said, change. I mean, I'm in the middle of this river. We changed and went back. And then after that, we went back into the town. And here I thought, oh my God, it's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. But I was amazed at the place. And the Naga sadhus were that was an experience looking at those Naga sadhus. I mean, it's awe-inspiring when you see them. And it's like the energy that, they have is amazing. And I mean, that's a memory that's always etched in my mind. I can still see the whole lot of them walking, and they have somebody who was on like almost a chariot, and, they have their own hierarchy. And it was amazing. I could just visualize. I mean, I've written the story about the Darshanamis, so I can just imagine how people who stood in front of them must have been in awe. So I guess all these kind of things in the mind, comes out when you write a story where it's close to your heart.
So, Vijayaka, first of all, I think this is a wonderful book, and this has been published by Indica. And I encourage people to follow Indica get associated with Indica and all of its different initiatives, whether it is in the area of books or arts or culture or basically experiential learning and the events that it organizes and the learning opportunities that it provides. So definitely, please follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Check out our website also. Indica Books is one offshoot of Indica. And it has provided this platform and opportunity for so many different stories and writers and authors such as yourself to find a tangible outlet to your creativity, which otherwise perhaps may have lived but within a very much smaller audience or reach. So to that end, I think really happy that Indica is doing what it does. And on behalf of Indica Books, I'd also like to thank you for having written this book. Folks, the book's name is Forever There. It is available on Amazon, and you can order it, you can read it. Follow us on Indica Books on Twitter at Indica Books, on Facebook, on groups.facebook.com search for Indic Book Club, and you can join the group. We talk about books, discuss books, and more. So on behalf of Indica Books, Vijayaka, I'd like to thank you once again, and it's a wonderful book. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I would like to say that I am so thankful to be a part of the Indica family. To me, it feels more like a family than, working for somebody. I mean, that's why we could all come together for this also. And I'm really thankful to all of you. And this is the encouragement I get to, go ahead with my next book. And all thanks to Hari for being so very supportive. And I just told him, and he said, Akka, of course we'll publish it. So I do hope people who read it like it as much as I did when I wrote it, or probably more than I liked when I read it. Wrote it.
Thank you, and again, namaskar, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaskar, everyone.